Ravi sir, how are you? Ravi sir, can you hear us?
A very good afternoon to you all. Are you able to see me, hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Your voice is little low. If you can please raise your voice, sir.
Let me see. How about it now?
Yeah, much better.
So 1 minute. I think, are you able to see me?
No.
No, okay. What? How about now? Not
Yeah,
yet?
we can see your this presentation, but not your face.
Okay, 1 second. Let me switch off and switch on. Oh, okay. I think some issue. I will again log in. I'll switch off and come out and log in. Okay?
All right. All right.
there's no voice, right? Or is it me not able to?
I think no one is speaking.
There seems to be some issue. I'm not able to show myself. Just a minute. Function of 10. There you are. I'm so sorry for this delay, though I started off 10 minutes earlier. Very good afternoon to you all, and let's start the session today. And some of you must have attended my last session on 28th, right? So if you remember, I had covered some experiences on my experiences in the previous organization. I just wanted to recap what we discussed on the 28th of April, wherein I shared with you two significant interventions in Steel Authority Bhilai Steel Plant on the OD area. One was the performance enhancement through people program, which I shared with you. And we started off in a rolling mill, the steel plant. It replicated in a few more rolling mills, and then a steel melting shop, based on which we could get really some good benefits, and both intangible and tangible. That sort of turned around the organization in one way through what we call the creating responsive organization through people, which was a large-scale organization-wide intervention, OD intervention, covering almost 30,000 employees, both in the plant and the mines, and that really changed the climate and culture of the organization. I'm talking about the year 99 to about 2002. These are 3 years when these interventions were brought in. And then the next OD intervention I shared was through advancement of people. I think I have to share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
Yes, sir.
In edit mode or in the slide mode?
It's in slide mode.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Yes, now it is in presentation mode.
Yeah. So successfully, I could successfully share another OD intervention, which I did when I moved to Bombay, and in an organization called Reliance Infocom at that time, where we had experience of not really getting though I was in HR, responsible for the graduate engineer trainees, and they had a challenge of learning about their other functions and systems in the organization. The training department, surprisingly, was not supporting, because they were focusing only on those lateral related training on the equipments and things like that. So through the help of the senior trainees, we could get what we call I used to call the one-to-all program, wherein we had almost every batches that joined later, subsequently next almost a year, learning about the different functions through the senior trainees themselves doing it. So that's one thing which I also discussed. Now today, let us discuss about from where we left on the other interventions, which I would like to also share in the other organizations which we have worked. I believe in sharing my experience more than just putting some slides and then talking about it. In any case, you have this reading material. Today you have YouTube, you have the Google to provide you all the information under sun in terms of OD interventions. but I would like to share some of my experiences only. So if you really see, what did you make out of the interventions that we have happened done? Of course, I think I must mention about the syllabus that has to be covered. Today, we will cover the designing, implementing OD interventions. It is where I will try to bring in some of the other experiences I had. Notably, I would like to share it at a greater length on what I was trained in by Dr. Roy Pollock on 6D, 6 disciplines of breakthrough learning. I would urge you, if you have an opportunity, to go to the YouTube later to understand what this is. And if an opportunity comes again in the organization, in your organization, or probably elsewhere, do attend Dr. Roy Pollock's training. I think it's available these days online as well. So that successfully helped me to become a better facilitator in terms of the 6Ds aspect. In addition, of course, as I've been trained in SHRM on facilitation skills, I will also try to bring about what is the role of training in driving organization change. Most often, it is a myth that OD is taken care of by HR and training is done exclusively with the training department. I would say without training, no OD functions can, training in one say or learning per se, no OD function can be successful. So training is part and parcel of OD. Well, we will discuss, since we'll be discussing about what are the benefits or what are the reasons how the OD can be successful. At the same time, you must also realize there are reasons why OD or HR strategies fail. So it's more or less sum up, trying to see what we should be guarded against so that our interventions are successful. How do we develop a training strategy? Then what are the steps involved in that? And I will share my own personal experience in actually bringing out a training calendar really as recent as just about 3 years back with an organization on how do you link the training calendar to the training strategy. So if you, what do you make out of the last day interventions? So what do you understand as OD, right? And OD, if you really see, in fact, I just put out a slide that we also shared with you last time. OD has a significant 5 phases, wherein there's an entry to it, then what are the problems, what are the opportunities, what are situations, and we enter into a contract with the stakeholders involved, and then an agreement of the scope, what the target population to be covered, what are the areas to be covered, things like that. Then we have a fact-finding phase. We have a lot of interventions, interactions with the people concerned, and there's a data collection, what is the current situation. Then we explore information to understand, to clarify how accurate this information we are, based on which we develop an action plan, and then what are the change solutions we have to develop, and what are the success indicators based on information data analysis. If you go back to the OD intervention, I specifically started off sometime, as I said, in the rolling mill. We went through what we called, at that time we called pre-PEP program to design the OD intervention, right? What are the things we need to do, then develop a module running 2 days, and trying to cover all the facts that are required, not just for the management or people who are driving the unit, even to the front supervisors, frontline supervisors, or even the senior technicians who involve the various departments as well. Then through the training programs, we evolve the solution. The solution could have been apparent there, but what we could see is the training helped us in getting people to sit together to evolve this solution together, and how we can mutually, satisfy each other's expectations, so that the performance that are expected, the targets that are to be achieved, can be fulfilled. So the plan was a commitment, a sankalp that was made that we will do this, we will do that, things like that. After the the participant went back to their respective shop floors, they started implementing them consciously, and then the data again was collected to see the result in terms of the quality, quantity, and even the intangible benefit improvement, the model, and we even checked the attendance as well. The attendance significantly improved even after this. So there were tangible and both intangible benefits of this strategy. So more or less, if you see the definition of OD is they are systematic and planned actions or activities designed to improve the overall effectiveness, health, and performance of an organization. For change. So these are the ways, if you can just try to recap that this is the definition and this is how it is done. So this I borrowed it from one of the organizations which are involved in OD interventions in a big way. There are 4 typical interventions that can happen in OD. In fact, it is all pervasive these days. It could be on human process interventions. Then there are HR management interventions. There are strategic change interventions and techno-structural interventions. So I could relate some of those points under each of the interventions in the experience that I've had. Individual interventions could be specific to counseling or mentoring. That could also happen depending upon the requirement, or even group interventions could be the way we had as experience shared with you, where groups are involved, and even an outbound team building intervention as well. And connecting to the target is also a good thing under the human process interventions. And there are conflicts in an organization, in a particular team, they can be sorted out intergroup relation interventions as well. So conflict resolution or interventions can also form part of human process interventions. When you move to the HR management interventions, there could be performance management as one area. Then how to develop talent could be another area. Then how to, diversity interventions could be there. But of late, diversity, equity, and inclusion have come in a very big way in most of the organizations. These also some important areas that we need to address. Whatever processes that we incorporate come under this. Wellness interventions, thanks to COVID, wellness has got in a big way across organizations. There are at least daily or even weekly courses on yoga or exercises and all that. Even that form part of HR interventions. And strategic interventions can be transformational change. The crop initiative, I said, has been a transformational change in a very, very big way. And any continuous improvements, Kaizen, your continuous incremental improvements also form part of continuous change. There could be a movement that takes place where total quality management also comes under techno interventions. Trans-organizational change could be where mergers and acquisitions happen. If a subsidiary, if an organization is taken as a subsidiary or it forms part of another organization, trans-organizational change can also take place. Any changes in organizational design by expansions, the capacity expansions, or the continuous total quality management could include application or even what you call statistical quality control and quality movements could form part of TQM. Work designs could be part of it. Any additional designs or modifications and repairs that happen could cause for work design. Any individual issues in terms of being more engaged, requirement of more engagement, calling for job enrichment also comes under this techno-structural intervention. So if you really see this, there's so many interventions that are large scale and designed to have major impact. There are also OD interventions that will be required proposed interventions where we could actually bring out a change. And what is important is finding a solution that addresses the organization challenges. And it could be rightly, as you could see, there's so many interventions, it could be quite overwhelming. There's always a challenge not to try to attempt too many at a time. They all look very, what you call easy at the outset, but it's just like multitasking has its own challenges. We lose focus. Even OD interventions in organization has to be done one at a time, preferably. Otherwise, they tend to get mixed up. We will lose focus. It will also be confusing to our stakeholders. So we need to take out one at a time. So these are some of the ways we can bring about change. Okay. So I would like to share with you I think the recent experience before I moved out or superannuated from organization, the Reliance experience. Many of you are familiar with Reliance as one of the leading industrial organized industries in the world, in the country, for the world as well. So I was in part of 3 waves of OD interventions, and the fourth part was not much. It almost I was not connected to it because it was the area which was not aligned in terms of my functions. First wave was the values and behaviors. Most of us know Reliance as a very aggressive organization where some of the issues which most other progressive quote unquote organizations have are missing. So in 2013, that's the time when I joined Reliance, we had brought out, in fact, some of you must be aware, Reliance had a 6-day working, it changed to 5-day working. We brought out what is called the values and behaviors as paramount important for every organization, every individual within the organizations. So the values I still remember because I was a facilitator for the values and behavior sessions, which was done across the organization, across all sites, right? The values was, one is integrity. Second one's customer value. Third is ownership mindset. Then respect, then excellence, and one team. So these were those core values which were made to internalize by each individual through an half-day workshop. Just on values and behaviors, we used to have a half-day workshop, and we shared it across the organization. And performance management system, whatever we had, tweaked quite a large extent to incorporate the how part, right? So whatever said and done, targets used to get achieved, but the behaviors were missing, right? It is not just the what is important, it's how you do it. Are we treating people with respect? Is there a team building? In fact, I still remember it started off with the chairman addressing the leadership of Reliance. Then we facilitators pitched in and then started chairing chairs. He clearly started the session saying, what brought us here will not take us there. Right? That was the clarion call that was made. So the values and behaviors were, were brought in into our performance management system also to ensure that whatever we do, we are taking care of those how element. Behaviors are per se. So there were path-breaking tools and practices, as I said, and Reliance started getting as a big brand to work with. In fact, it also by 2015, it became one of the top employers. I was an organization earlier, which was last year to which was the best employer. When I moved here, I was fortunate to be called also an organization which also was a good best employer at that time. The second way, which I was directly involved, was the talent management and employee engagement intervention. Hitherto, there was nothing like talent management in the organization. There's nothing like potential appraisal system. We had elaborative systems wherein we had practices like what is called is RAL, Reliance Accelerated Leadership Program. We had CAP, this Career Acceleration Program, and then succession planning, systems where each individual was identified or taken through various assessment tests, and those who qualified through the assessment tools that we use, they were brought through a talent management process where they were interviewed based on 4 aspects: their judgment ability, then agility, learning agility, their relationship orientation, and achievement orientation. So acronym was JAR, right? So each individual was assessed for these 4 factors to identify their potential, right? They were in the organization people who did not meet up to these requirements. They were categorized as subject matter experts, but those who had this potential that could be brought out were developed as for leaderships. So similar patterns were existing in previous organizations as well. But I'm just touching the Reliance because that was a recent one which we were involved with. And then they were on to their Excel fast track too. They were given promotions, they made changes and things like that. Simultaneously, we had this Gallup survey identifying employee engagement factors. We had those Q12 managers. We had identified those who had issues with team members, and they were gone through some training programs under those 12 factors for uh, employee engagement. And an elaborate exercise, even on the same lines that the values and the behaviors, we had the employment engagement interventions across the organization. And this helped in a big way to actually the next year getting us the best employer award nomination as well. The third part was where talent acquisition took place. Because those were the days when, due to various reasons, people were moving out of Reliance, even the year previous, to attract as a Reliance as what you call an organization where people should join. We developed a lot of interventions in the talent acquisition part as well. And we had a system where no vacancy in a department can be filled from outside except for some of the few on the leadership. Everywhere, whenever there's a vacancy, it has to be routed through an internal portal. And only if we do not receive people with those adequate skills, then only we were allowed to go to the market. So through this, we prevented exits, separations because of people looking out for better opportunities. Not that Reliance was not a good employer to work with, but people who were stifled, not able to utilize their skills best. So we were able to move people across the organization, across sites to retain and sustain the talent. And learning and development also started in a very, very big way. We had different organizations working with the Harvard Management, Coursera, whatnot. We were having thousands of e-learning interventions simultaneously brought out. People were given freedom to choose and learn whatever they wanted to do. And then a very big, very, very big way, learning became the part and parcel of every individual, irrespective of the level in the organization. That was the third wave. The fourth wave, I admit that I was not part of it. Today, we have a situation where you have artificially enabled voice bot. Any question you have, the immediate answer comes, and people have great experiences on the digital HR part as well. These are the four ways which have really sort of turned around even the perception of what Reliance was in the minds of public to what it is today. So what are the trends that are happening around the organization? Now, first and foremost is the hybrid work environment. Today, the trend is like that.
So can you just put the last slide, sir, for a second?
1 minute. The previous show. Yeah. Yes, they would see it.
Yes, sir, just 1 minute.
Yeah.
Right, sir?
Okay.
Sir.
So hybrid work environment, as you know, has come to stay. You can thank COVID for it. But today, because of various reasons, in fact, today, I believe in the West, particularly in Canada, 80% of teleworkers are there. And then so many it also has become an employee value proposition, right? People are preferring to work in organizations where this work from home is there. In fact, there are cases where I'm turning it as work only from home, right? This is also coming to play in a big way. More and more organizations are turning to this, and there's a mix of both remote and in office as needed. So this requires organizations to develop new policies, right? New procedures. Can somebody mute? And this is helping in, this is of course a big challenge for organizations. Same time, how to treat people working in with hybrid working, or even people working in offline. So depending upon the requirement of the the skills or the nature of the organization, but at the same time giving flexibility for people to more productivity, promote more productive, uh, are also being considered. But there are the flip side of it. There could be issues like team dynamics, then it could be issue of commitment, relationships, and all that. So we have to draw a line wherein we ensure that as OD or HR or L&D professionals, see we are having this hybrid work arrangements which are viable, so that organizations start thinking about what roles, what tasks can be done remotely, as well as what kind of people and skills that are well suited for remote work that has to be brought out. Well, OD experts are thinking in terms of seeing how could we do it by using design thinking. By the way, design thinking is also coming over the last decade as a very interesting and useful intervention, where collaboratively, iteratively, organizations are trying to bring out innovations which are people focused, trying to analyze and then use some intuitive thinking that allows OD organizations to experiment, create models, create prototypes, and then based on feedback, redesign things like that. So redesigning organizations is also, as mentioned earlier, is a powerful OD intervention, and design thinking has become useful. The second is the emphasis I mentioned about DEI, and then the events of the last roughly a decade or so highlighted this need, wherein we have to include this diversity, equity, inclusion. More and more awareness sessions are being focused on. Then inclusive cultures are being included, not necessarily in terms of race, but also in terms of their abilities. Affirmative actions are being identified in terms of trying to engage a specific category of people for specific requirements, and has been dictated to organizations to ensure that. And so training and development programs, as I mentioned, are being given to employees to understand their biases and learn to work effectively with people of different backgrounds. The third is digital transformation. As I mentioned, technology is playing a very, very increasing role, important role. So we as OD professionals have to be tech savvy, and we will have we will see more and more organizations embracing digital transformations, and we require to develop new skills in the area of AI, data analysis, and how do we collaborate virtually. The next will be on the focus on employee well-being, as I mentioned earlier. So this has, thanks to COVID again, has made a significant impact. Many are experienced burnout and stress. Even in these days of even hybrid models, expectations on individuals have increased manifold. Multitasking has come in a big way. So the organizations are ensuring that we have more organizations prioritizing well-being and offering wellness programs, flexible work arrangements, and even mental health resources as well. Then comes the agile organizations. So today's hallmark of successful organization is agility. So as the pace of change is accelerating, organizations become more agile. And how quickly we bring in new changes, and how we quickly adopt those changes, facing challenges and opportunities. That's one thing which is going to be measured. These days, a term called quiet hiring has also come in. What is quiet hiring? Is actually hiring within by identifying potential possibilities of people leaving because of absence of skills, and quickly developing them in them those skills which are required for future of the organization, so that people are retained within the organization. So overall, if you see, organization development is evolving to meet those challenges. We as OD experts, we have to embrace these trends. We have to be more proactive and see how we can create a culture that is resilient, that is inclusive, that is adaptable, and thrive in this ever-changing world. So this is so very important for us in the years to come. I don't know how many are able to see this slide. I just picked it up from Matt and Minan and Associates, who are really one of the leading OD consultants. I'm not going to go deep in it, except changing that it's expected of us as OD people to be really competent in many aspects. You could be one who is systems change experts or change agents, as a culture builder, right? And also an innovator. So many things rolled into one. We are expected to be efficient designers as well, right? In how we can design strategies, interventions, and processes. As a process consultant, which is a more common role that we have to have, how can we increase leadership and organizational capacity? How do we facilitate group dialogues? How do we facilitate decision making by creating a non-threatening environment? And how do we synthesize the data, right, from multiple stakeholders? We are facilitators in a big way. So how do we synthesize the data for the decision making? Then we have a business advisor role, through being a strategic catalyst, who think strategically, we take initiative. Then a result-oriented leader who understand and apply the principles of customer service and set challenging goals and measure the impact. Then the trusted advisor role, where we effectively develop those relationships and partnerships between people and translate the business reality, business outcomes to key stakeholders. Then we have this role of a credible strategist. Because they appear all high-sounding names, but it's a very ideal system. Even if you do one at a time, it's a big thing. So as OD experts, we can take up one against each of these competency frameworks and then see what best way we can do in the organization. So even, of course, the informed consultants, as I mentioned, we are supposed to be the eyes and ears of the management, and then see what best we can do to advocate to be people as the hosts that are required for organizations and also for the leadership. We have to be a lifelong learner. And so somehow what I did probably in the previous organization caught on to me. Even post-retirement, I continuously keep myself updated, even though I'm not really required per se for any organization today. This is something which has become part and parcel, but most of you are still working in organizations. You'll have to be better learned than your other, colleagues in the other organizations. So if you really see, the areas have spread across. We can categorize them in terms of organizational specific intervention across, or we can categorize as per individuals and team intervention as well. Balanced scorecard, we are going to talk later in the next session, is one which we can use and then translate it into specific training scorecards to meet organization's requirement in terms of financial, customer, learning, and other processes. We can see what training specific interventions can be made. It could also be specific to a separate department. One department requires, we can do that. And restructuring organizations could be part of it. Then even designing, and thanks to Google Forms, we can develop the surveys, short surveys, to see what interventions could be required, and then try to measure the interventions. And then performance management systems as well. That also could be part of the OD intervention to really capture how performance, the true sense, can be recognized and rewarded. Even digital transformation of HR can be part of the organization sense. For individual and team category, we have the succession planning which can be done, right? So there are ways, as I mentioned earlier, where people were specifically identified, whether based on his or her importance, criticality of the organization, whether we should have a successor to be lined up within the next short-term period, the medium, or the long time, right? Green, amber, and red, right? Red and green and amber are the way. So these specific interventions we'll have to think about. Goal alignments have to be prepared. There you see misalignment of the goals, an awareness session to connect people to the goals, specific coaching intervention, mentoring, and all those sessions, rotational job assignments. So actually speaking, today when we have so many online courses available, uh, it is not rocket science for anyone to pick up any other skill, right? I was never an HR professional. I did not qualify as an HR too. I'd only had this postgraduate development training and development, and that was enough for me. And I was bought into the earlier organization to drive the recruitment of GETs based on the success as measured by my managers. I became an HR head. So today, learning a new skill is not difficult. So we need to identify people with some interest and move on to other skills as well, other roles as well, without any specific connect to a qualification as well. So people are interested to learn new things, to be engaged better, put them on cross-functional teams. Whereas and also individual assignments, concurrent assignments. So I'm not comfortable, I'm not very aware in finance. Put me in a team where I at least be a role, maybe passive to some extent, to participate in some discussions or meetings, to maybe to identify a particular project or addition, modification, or repair, whatever. Then 360 feedback. That also could be part of a team initiative. So these are the areas where you can think of in terms of this. So today it's all pervasive. Private companies have done it, public sector organizations have done it, external OD practices, internal OD practitioners could be there, managers, leaders. I mean, everyone should have a OD mindset. Today, as I said, as I work in a non-profit organization, I'm working on a OD intervention in whatever way I can. So L&D practitioners, charities, name everywhere. I think we can have a OD intervention in one way or the other. So here we come across the next part of the syllabus that we need to cover on what is our role as a training or OD manager in driving organization change. So training manager assumes a very crucial, important role because he or she brings in that vision or a shift and it's in its practical implementation. So we collaborate with the change holders, stakeholders, including the leaders, the project managers, and the subject matter experts. We take their help in identifying training needs arising from the change initiative. And based on these insights, the training manager designs and develops those targeted online courses or offline courses, and then tries to align the company's goals and objectives. The training manager plays a very important role in fostering this employee buy-in. This is a challenge which I faced initially, as I shared with you the other day. Many line managers don't believe a training solution will work. Yes, there are several areas where training solutions will not work. But I will share it with you later. Let us not venture into those areas which training will not work. If the morale is not up there, or training cannot help, or other areas, maybe pay scales are not satisfactory, training will not work. So we have also to safeguard lest lose our credibility on actually attempting to bring in a training solution where we can definitely the definite probability or possibility of bringing in a change. So we need to be catalysts or change agents in effectively communicating those change management strategies and ensure that employees understand the purpose and the benefits of the change initiative and encourage the participation and commitment. So this is something which we as training and OD managers have to bring about. There are several challenges. So these are something which I have experienced. One is resistance to change. What do you mean by the unspoken norms? See, in fact, there's a common Hindi phrase, ऐसा ही होता है, कुछ नहीं हो सकता है. You know, these are unspoken norms. Nobody says that. The thing is written there. But people are comfortable doing the same thing again and again. They are not seeking to, be more proactive. So resistance steps in. So there is, and as it said, no, the force field analysis by Kurt Lewin, who says that for every change, there's also an opposite reaction. You are under the force field analysis. So in most cases, employees are used to a fixed way of working, right? Because of the specific organizational behavior, right? And this is a situation that is actually they think that is acceptable, unless the demand comes from the top and leading to behaviors which are not acceptable, what we call in Hindi terms gali galoch. This actually upsets the climate and culture of the organization. So creativity, then sharing vital information is so very important, and benchmarking. These are something which we need to bring about in organizations, trying to share the good practices of other organizations to make people more aware and appreciate the need for the change. There's a false sense of harmony. अरे तो ठीक तो चल रहा है ना, अभी क्यों करना है? And this sort of a mentality that brings in. Why do we need to? Everything is okay now. We are getting a salaries. What are we trying to do? Why are we becoming more aggressive? I mean, these are something which take over people's minds and not bringing them the best possible. Best, in fact, they have an immense potential to do, and this has not been there. So resistance towards this transformation in the organization, if you really see, deep rooted is the fear of that change. So that the fear of change is the one we need to actually eliminate by inviting them, creating a space for everyone, irrespective of whichever level in the organization they are, and trying to see that communication happens across, and this way we can bring them into the change. In fact, the need for top management communication is so very important. As I shared with you the other day, leaders' presence and the line manager's presence in all the order interventions is so very important. How we collaborate with them is really a prerequisite for success of order interventions. The second is we have these competing priorities, right, due to lack of time. When we are talking about production, the same thing we are talking about OD intervention. We are talking about a safety intervention. That's also an OD, as I mentioned the other day, right? And they may be even competing. We may not have better production with more emphasis on safety. That's more a mind block, right? So how we can ensure safety at the same time, efficiency and effectiveness in production, and so on and so forth. So this is something which we need to see how we can prioritize. And this is a defense actually that organizations have. अरे time नहीं है उसके लिए हम क्या करेगा? But we'll have to somehow make a way possible by trying to share how it could have been successful in other organizations and things like that. Third is important is the lack of urgency. Yes, Leo, you have a question?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Ravi.
Yeah.
I just want to come back to the second point which you said, competing priorities due to lack of time. You said we have to make a way to do this. We are currently facing a severe issue of this in our organization. Can you give us some examples on how we can do something like this? Like, because whether you talk about sales, whether you talk about service, whether you talk about admin, whether you talk about any department, every department has competing priorities, even though we are all working towards the same organizational goal. So could you give us some example of this particular point, please?
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Take the example case where wellness was an issue, right? A few years back. And then, commuting in a city like Bombay takes a lot of time. And we made it a point that at least on a Thursday, right, for 1.5 hours, people come to attend yoga sessions in the business rooms, or there are some halls where facilitators were doing this color. Then we face-to-face assistance. Say if you get away people during the office hours, when they are supposed to, at the end of the day, give some result, and you're pulling them into yoga rooms and training and exercises and rooms, is not going to bring out what we want. we did this, we asked them to have some patience. In fact, got some even leaders to participate. We did a little survey post those interventions once a week only. It is not every day, once a week. Then the results were in terms of more efficiency. So these were people who the next day, when we are Thursday, then Friday, they were more motivated and to do better work. In fact, we didn't find any issue later that there were this issue of priorities. Somehow the work that was to be delivered by end of the day that day, Thursday, were delivered first thing in the morning on a Friday. Because of this, the fact that people perceive the intervention of the organizations in their health, it gives some motivation to contribute better, and the results came out. So that's what I hope I've answered this question. What it requires to break that mindset by having some people. In fact, see, the best way to influence is to have some friends in the management who will trust you and get them to be part of this intervention. Then they will share the success in their teams by allowing such people to take part in these programs. Get what I'm saying, Leo? So this is something.
Yeah, thanks.
It could also, as I mentioned earlier in the case, when we said had this safety interventions, very pulling out people for those programs, they said, and then trying to focus on toolbox tasks every morning. They said, ये toolbox task करते रहेगा तो काम कैसा होगा? But we found over a period of a month that the accidents, I mean, not accidents, even the near misses were also not there. People were more aware, conscious about it. Right? So communication breakdown. Yeah.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
So in previous slides, you said that as a individually we should have cross-functional team working together. So
Yeah.
what are the points to be kept in mind while we do the cross-function thing in the organization? So what team should be working together? What are the prerequisites, I can say, for this?
Right. There are continuous improvement techniques like value methodologies, Kaizen, quality circles, and that are already there, existing for the last several decades. Right. Taking out people to do such interventions, right, for any improvement, problem solving a problem, it could be yield. I'm talking typically manufacturing parlance, productivity, or in the self-service for improving customer service. We could have people irrespective of the function. Finance person may not have a direct role to play in customer service. He or she is involved in budgeting and allocation of and all that. Having him or her also part of this particular team in customer service will be enable him or her to understand the challenges that his internal customers face, right? In fact, in Voltas, we started off, I'm talking about 15, 20 years back, as what you call non-intrusive visits, right? Wherein we had the HR, finance, and even legal people be part of meetings with project managers who are dealing with high-rise buildings to get this idea of what problems and challenges we face, right? So then they are supposed to submit a report which could have a bearing in their future decisions, right? And how they can help through their own ways to see those particular teams, the project teams, can better function. So this is something which we can also think of, how we have other teams. Same way, if a line manager, a project manager has a challenge of understanding the finance functions, when a budgeting exercise takes place at the leadership level, have him or her part of the team, just as an observer, what all those processes takes place. So he or she will have a better perception of what finance. He or she will see when he allocates budget for his particular team, particular group, he will be mindful of that, right? Got it, Shivani?
Okay, sir. Yeah.
So actually, I had a question.
Yes, Nikhil.
Yeah. So while we understand that these are a couple of challenges with respect to the culture change management, and surely there would be a lot more challenges, right? And probably you'd be listing a couple of few more as well. What I would be keen interested into is just to understand how to cater to these challenges, or probably how I can ensure that because see, knowing about the challenges is one part, but how do you tackle that challenges and how do you overcome that is another part, and that is more tricky and more concerning. So taking the very first example, right now we are having a organizational shift into the cultural values, mission, and vision because of a merger. So the very first point, which says resistance to the change due to unspoken norms, right? That is something which is highly being observed in the organization. So if such kind of a situation comes in the organization, how should one deal with it?
No, I am not saying things are as easy as I listed down here. Things are extremely challenging. We have to have, very important is the commitment from the top. It is so very important. If this is missing, I've been saying, even the sort of repeating, the there has to be a culture shift and the leadership commitment at the top. The climate has to fall in. See, culture change can happen only if the climate changes. The climate can be changed only by leadership commitment. So how we have the leadership, very, very important. We cannot do anything. In fact, even the past experience based on what I experienced earlier, very interestingly, in that organization, the head of works was committed, but the managing director was not at all interested because he comes from the background of a person coming from the hard shops who did not believe in training. We did not believe in intervention. He believed that his success or his growth in the organization was purely based on his hard work, right?
Mhm.
Here is where the ED, the next in line command, had a one-to-one interaction for about 1 hour with the managing director. He said, leave it to me. I believe in intervention. Just have some patience, right? Then when we were trying to see, he was said, oh, bahut ho gaya. How much you are going to cover? We had enough intervention that not production suffer. This was the mindset he had. Then the ED works, the second in line, took charge and said, just don't even worry about it. I will take care of it. He had a one-to-one interaction for about half an hour, 40 minutes, and then it went on. So it's for us, again, I may be repeating, please have some good friends in the line, particularly the leadership. There are definitely some people who are aligned to HR. If you do not have that, mind you, it will not be able to succeed. So in fact, it's more important we have friends amongst the line than amongst our own HR professionals for any of our interventions to be successful. Get you
So
saying?
yeah. So it has to be more of a top-down approach. And in that case as well, when I have a confidence from my leadership, but I'm having a challenge with my middle management and my entry level employees as well. So it has to be forced down below. Then only that change can happen. Like, am I correct on that part?
No, I would try to change that word force down. No, how do we force it down without the leadership believing in it? No, it should not anything forced will carry resistance, right? You will have to face resistance. Only when the line managers believe in it, right? And say this is the possible. I again go back to my personal example. When we brought in what is called the on-the-job training system. Hitherto, people were learning by observing people and then seeing and making some mistakes and then carrying on, right? Learning only through mistakes. That was actually causing a lot of issues. Then we brought in what called the on-the-job training system in the organization, where we developed on-the-job training manuals, got people to train on job instruction techniques, then made the line managers believe, and then really see, after the supervisors learned about how to instruct, the learning accelerated. Then once they went back after learning how to instruct, then they, through the manual, started instructing people how to perform a particular activity, whether it was operations, whether it was maintenance. And at the end of the session, the training session on the job, there was a questionnaire. The line managers involved in developing this questionnaire, asking questions. The line manager involved in developing a competency checklist. Did that person who was trained do it, do it, do it? And that conviction that this method of on-the-job training system, as opposed to let them learn by themselves over a period of time, let them make mistakes, which could be very detrimental to safety and time and other things, got in that line management support. So we'll have to design some interventions where we have the line managers involvement as designers, co-designers of the intervention. Then only we'll get the commitment. If we try to say this is our intervention, this is something which we need to shout down to, it won't work. Recognize such people who have been contributors to OD interventions. In fact, they have a better role to play to get things implemented. We are only facilitators. The doers are those guys. Got what you're saying, Nikhil?
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
have to
Got
change,
some understanding. Yeah.
we'll have to change subtly the role. We are
Mhm.
the facilitators. Take out that hat of we are the implementers or doers, right?
Mhm.
Put on the hat of only facilitators. Have some over the tie discussions and reason with them. And if you want better targets, better output from your team, trust me, we will do it together. Not I will do it for you. So there's a slight change in the way we approach. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And
Thanks for
thank
the
you.
input.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. In fact, that makes the monotony that I'm actually doing. I really don't enjoy this one-way traffic here. Right? Thank you for this. Well, communication breakdowns as it happens, hierarchies and all that. So everywhere, flattening the organization through this communication means. Right? In fact, the first time when we started the interventions, it is even earlier, but the first time the management was talking to individuals formally. Otherwise, these levels were there. The workers had no opportunity to interact with the head of the department. Those were the days. I'm talking 25 years back. When we got the HR departments interact in the classroom, that really broke down all those hierarchies. Transparency came in a big way, right? Second, the next part is the commitment to culture work. Culture is a very vague, thing. They think culture will take its own time. It's something which is not possible. There's always again the same way. The first point, it will take its own sweet time and things like that. So this commitment is very, very important. And progressive organizations have focused very much on this culture. Those organizations which were thriving once upon a time as the top 500 or top 50 in the Fortune 500 or whatever are no longer there today. Organizations have not really focused on culture, have gone away. Today's organizations, whether it is Microsoft or Netflix or Google or whatever, they have worked a lot on the culture organizations. Yes, there have been pluses and minuses, but somehow to sustain the culture, the commitment for culture is very, very important across the line. So this is very, that trickling down effect has to be visible, and one has to realize that the leaders have to own it, and they have to be the gatekeepers of what are the acceptable norms. They have to act as role models and actually, demonstrate the values, beliefs, and behaviors. And I still remember some time back when this intervention started off in Reliance, it was a courageous HR leader who asked the chairman, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, well, that was the situation at that point of time. He said, well, if there is a person who's not focusing on the values and behaviors, but he has been loyal to the organization, sir. He has been working for 20 years with you. What do you think we should do? Without blinking an eye, chairman said, he will have to go. It is recorded. So this is something which has to come very clearly, crystal clear from the management. We have to demonstrate those behaviors. We have to act as role models. Then only it's possible. So some of the indicators, and I'm going to reinforce this slide with another slide as a measure. So these are the indicators of cultural change. Alignment of employees' behaviors. You could see that change, perceptible change happening with behaviors of people, with new values. Everybody talks about it. Today, every employee in Reliance will know the five core values. I remember once when I was at the L&T, I was part of a team in bringing out project control tools for our projects in the Middle East. I was part of the team as a L&D people development person with consultants from Accenture. After a meeting, I was just going to the washroom and I was coming back. These two people were quickly writing down something. And I just looked at their desktop or their laptop, and I was surprised to see them writing what values and behaviors they demonstrated during the week. This was a big surprise to me. I mean, we think values or behavior is something we heard in the classroom, we may or may not, but they were made to write down what value of integrity they did, what value of, say, respect they did. So this is something every employee has to write down and submit to the manager. So these are actions that will be commensurate to the level of the organization. You can't expect probably a particular down the person may not be demonstrating a particular value, but across various levels, individuals have to demonstrate a value expected of them, right? Second will be integration of values into the business practices and needs. How specific values are adopted in the new processes. Excellence could be in the area of production, customer value in the area of customer service, right? Respect with the team members, right? And then team, we cross teams and things like that. So leadership role modeling is also very, very important. In fact, those were the days, honestly, in the earlier organization, if you had asked me, is there anybody whom you consider as role model? Honestly, I did not have. When this culture changes happen, right, I could relate to a specific leader. I would like to be like him. So are we as OD or change agents being role models? Are we developing people along the line who can be looked up as role models? Is also our challenge and our duty and responsibility. People are looking for that. If an organization has people who are not able to identify role models, there's something wrong with the culture of the organization, right? So this is so very, very important. So performetrics have to undergo a change, right? What our KPIs, key performance indicators, have to be done. It is a ritual that we will have to do. Over the years, these get diluted. This is something which we have to force people. I'm talking to the leadership to give a lot of respect to it. When things cannot be, measured, then no change will happen. No change can be perceived. So this is so very important that we have these measurable KPIs along with the desirable cultural attributes to make this right. Effective communication strategy and training. Again and again, we need to reinforce people about those values. You have to give some examples, try to get people to talk about it. In fact, today, unlike those days, everything is available on the net. We have your intranets, you have your knowledge management portals, you can develop intranet portals here, have people to blog. That's something we should work on. In fact, Reliance started a very big way, and blogging and all that. You encourage people to write a blog. What did you demonstrate on this value of the organization today? Let this come on like that. So I cannot tell a lie. If I not demonstrated value, I can't go to the blog and write, right? People would also observing that. So let there be this sort of a training for people to get into this. Let be open communication. Unless very sensitive information is there, people have to communicate. Organizations do not share what bottom line, top lines are. Because it's available. Why should we wait till the quarter end and all that? Let us see where we are, how things have progressed. We have system of employee of the month and things like that. People do really recognize based on this criteria. All that has to change. We have adaptability to change situation. And very, very important is resilience. It's easy, to try you may fail and then give up. Our tenacity as HR agents or OD agents is so very paramount. We will attempt 10 times, we fail 5 times, but never ever give up, right? Tenacity is so very important as an attribute for us, and then we love to see how best we can influence our stakeholders and get people to more engage the employee. You do not even use the Gallup surveys. You can use your own means of satisfaction. Measure it, very important. You do something, measure it, give a feedback and see this is the improvement. Then only success beats success, as is said. You'll be able to bring out better information. I think we have been discussing. Do you want a break now or you want to go ahead?
Break, sir.
Break? Okay, we are giving a 5-minute break. It's okay?
Yes, sir, that should be okay.
Just a 5-minute break, or you want to have an extended break?
10 minutes, sir.
10-minute break. Okay, we'll join back at about 11 o'clock. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm talking from a other part of the world. I'm actually in the extreme part of Europe now, in Dublin. So that should be around what time on your watch?
15:30, sir.
15:30. Okay, fine. It will be 11 o'clock on my watch. Thank you. Okay.
Right, sir. Good day, sir.
Okay.
बीच वो बोर्ड वो नाम उठा के लिए लैपटॉप का फिर बुक्स होंगी बुक होंगी
Okay. Okay, can we start? Hello. Good afternoon once again. Shall I start?
yes sir
Are you able to see the screen?
hello
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll go to the next part, which is the measures of successful cultural change, almost the same lines that we discussed, indicators of cultural change. So whatever cultural change, we are done, it's undoubtedly a very complex process. It involves transforming the values, beliefs, norms, behaviors. If you have a search Google today, everything is available. Unlike when I was a student, like 30 years back or 20 years back, things are all available. Whatever transformations that are taking place across the world, you can see what cultural changes organizations are currently on. For example, Netflix shifted from a hierarchical model to one that is agile and innovative.
no.
They make changes every month or every other year. Some changes that reflects in the organization as well. Microsoft moved from a competitive and very siloed, stuck culture to that of a collaborative and customer focus. Can somebody mute the phone, please? So let us see what are those changes, measures. One, positive employee feedback, morale, and motivation. Right? These are the factors that we see. I think I don't know whether I shared with you last time. Those are the days when we used to facilitate these changes across, and the workers who were part of those programs who I would never have remembered their names and faces or whatever, would introduce me to their spouses in the marketplace, right? So that's the change we had. And they were so, the morale had been uplifted thanks to those courses, the sessions. The motivation really increased, improved. Second is the leadership commitment and consistency. That's what's there. As I said, as you go through one OD intervention, success led to the other. So the commitment was even not asked for. They were asking, when will you do next? Right? When that was the demand that placed upon us, right? Continuously. There were these visible changes across the workplace, across the atmosphere. Yeah? Overtime totally got stopped, right? Then customer feedback, shareholder feedback improved. In fact, this was seen back in organizations where customers could see. In fact, what happened in the plant was so effective into even the marketing organizations. Though they were not part of the change, they were only in their respective locations across the country. They could see this perceptible change in their responsiveness of their suppliers upstream, right? So they also gave a very good feedback, and so to the customer down the street. Now, and changes were sustained over the time, and that's how it happened. So if you really see, just like we had those four stages of the process, any change, is based on an action research model, right? Ideally, it should be so, because we'll have something to measure the gaps, then work on it and improve it. It will be seen as a proactive and a very what you call engaging process, not only from the HR or the L&D perspective, but also from the line perspective. So the model for action research is like this, right? So input section, that refers to the diagnosis of organization, right? The identification of the gaps, then the data are the same, analyzing the input, and working on it. So after the input is completed, the next step is to transform, right? Where you have the learning processes. It is actually the implementation part. Here is the where people learn, they understand the processes, the managers take the necessary steps, they conduct those workshops or whatever, so sessions, and for the delivered results. So once the plan is implemented, the results come out, and then changes in the behavior are seen. These results determine how successful the strategy has been. Then you gather the data through surveys, you measure them, and you will see there is this starting, this unfreezing part, then the change happens, and then the refreezing part. So there is a feedback between each of these processes, right? So there's a gap between unfreezing, between input and transformation, then they're fed into the input or the next intervention, whenever, or during the course of these interventions. Then there's a gap between results and changing, then again brought into the transformation phase. So there could be even what is input and also the output, any significant gaps, then again address. So a typical, process management per se, and then an improvement for process management, process improvement, we bring about this changes. So one thing very important we need to ensure is training strategies and implementation, not things that can be successful in one go. We need to have these interventions, right? We need to have these mid-course corrections. It cannot happen overnight, right? So I have brought in a study which from McKinsey, really driving home the point, the importance of training in driving organization change. There is actually a myth, that training is not required. Just start the intervention and then educate the people. Will do. No, training is part and parcel also. So I'm only trying to drive home the point here by the survey that was made by McKinsey some time back. So it clearly says that organizations with CEOs who communicate a compelling high-level change story, they are almost 6 times more likely to be successful. Are we getting the CEOs to change. Of course, you're taking it a smaller organization or department, then the HRD department. He or she has to communicate the change, right? When senior leaders are aligned messages about the change effort, the likelihood of success increases to almost again another 6 times. Training managers play a very pivotal role in this, or we as OD managers, right, in collaborating senior leadership and change governance teams. Customizing, it's very crucial to analyze the skill gaps and identify the training curves. And customizing training programs with engaging, impactful materials is very important. Because though I am trying to put on only bullet points and PowerPoints, things have changed. I will show you and demonstrate to you whatever interventions we are doing through training programs or making the line managers do. We'll have to ensure that we have the latest update PowerPoint presentations with all those animations, or minimize an optimum level amount, right? That will make people engaged to the presentations, right? And the resources have to be very, very, very appropriate so that the skills can be adapted. So metrics have to be evolved, feedbacks has to be taken, and data has to be the king. That has to drive those refinement for future training programs, right? Now, if you ask me, what is the role of training in OD? I would say without training, ODs are very unlikely to be successful, right? It's so very important. In fact, 35 years back or more than that, when I started my career, I was joined an organization which was making a loss of 1 crore a day. That was the losses, right? Thanks to the chairman at the point of time, about after 4 years down, 87, 88, Mr. V. Krishnamurthy took over as the chairman of SAIL. In fact, he was formerly chairman of Maruti Udyog. Then he was the one who was transformed the public sectors of those times, which are actually, what do you call it? There is a term used, public sector behemoths, and which were making losses. One great thing at that point on the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi did was to bring Krishnamurthy ji as the chairman. SAIL per se, he brought out a series of interventions. At that time, we did not know they were all OD interventions. OD was a term those started, but we in India came to know much, much later. He started what is called the SAIL, the priorities of action. Then he started something called the cultivating of culture of customer satisfaction, strategies for managing change, unfinished agenda. They were all booklets which were made available, right, to people who wanted access. All had a immediate bearing on need for resources to facilitate this change. I'm talking about almost 35 years back, right? Then on top of it, we had roughly around 91, 92, when things were all in place, we had a chairman who happened to be fortunately the director person. The first time a director HR director person took over as the chairman in the history of maybe any public sector organization at that point of time. He brought in British Steel consultants, and they were only focusing on training, right? But later, when they were asked have some OD intervention, they had nothing new to do at all. They brought in what they call the trust areas for training. They started with the one I mentioned earlier, on-the-job training system. Then they brought out what action-centered leadership training program across leaders, right from the board members to leaders on the shop floor. Then there is a program that made micro planning, the ability to train people, particularly the shop floor, to train to the nearest detailed steps to make improvements, whatever be in terms of targets. Then the cost effectiveness, the cost was the biggest challenge then, cost effectiveness training. Then training of training officers, right? What you have doing is definitely a good training in terms of online and modules. Over 20 days, we in the training department were trained over 4 days each across 3 months in what they called training of training officers, which also involved trainer as internal consultant. This is what we today call as OD. Elaborate, extensive training that we receive. Then internal audit of training. I had the opportunity to be an internal auditor for training. Then British still pick me up as an external auditor as well. Actually, external audit is done by, so I was also an external auditor visiting all the steel plants. And what I'm trying to say is not to talk about what that this gave me an extensive approach to this OD interventions, right? And at the end of the thing, when they were asked, okay, do some OD intervention, they said nothing else to do. We have results through all those training interventions I just mentioned to you. There's results in terms of improvement in targets across the steel organization. And they said the results speak for themselves. There's a cultural change. There's transformation across all levels in the organization. There is no need for a specific intervention per se as well, right? So everywhere, as I said, training has been the backbone for making those OD successful. So without training, there is no sure way of knowing people have understood the change. And without training, there is no drive for change, right? Then people realize that this is a strategy that we are to work on. Then, see, as I mentioned the other day also, intentions have to be turned to attention. And the attention will be manifested only through training. Now, with training, the focus on tactical ends to solve a problem or bring about a specific change. Whereas we start up at a strategic way, but ultimately that this is translated into action only through training. So we as trainers, we may be focused on individual growth and development by addressing gaps in field and the knowledge. So we conduct evaluations, we create job aids or tools, and use maybe multimedia projects. So in all ways, training is part and parcel of the OD intervention. Okay. So let's now understand the next part of the syllabus, which is developing and implementing training strategy. Here, as I said, I mentioned about those 6 Ds. I will quickly go through it, but I urge you again, even the cost of repeating, do see if you can attend, though it may be costly under Indian thing. If you want to develop as a better trainer, training manager, it's a very powerful program. There are also books available, you can read it. I would like to advocate that. So that's why I'm bringing it to it, though it may not apparently be part of the syllabus. In fact, incidentally, paper 1 is supposed to be the first paper, which actually can be branched out into all the other papers you have as part of the diploma program. So here is almost one way trying to give you an overview of what is required for us as training managers or trainers or OD consultants to also relate, so that we will be able to be better in whatever the syllabus is stored for you in the rest of the papers. Yeah, down. So whatever workshop, that 60s workshop was to do, was to give a, the intention was to first and foremost give greater value on the long term. So whether it is training or whether it is OD, whatever we are doing, we all agree, I think it has to be on the long term, right? Second, we have to make it more aligned to the company structure and functions, right? This is very important. So as a result of this, we as learning professionals, well, we will be more highly valued, right? We will be more respected by our business colleagues. So this is something which we have, this is our, I would say, karma, you can call it. This is what we are supposed to do. So let us see what is the business we are in. So what is the business we are in? We are in a business where we have to improve effectiveness, and we have across. So we are supposed to measure what was before and what is after. See, we can think about training. That's what we are here for, right? As current level of performance, right? This is what is there. Then what we do is our business and leaders, they expect us that we invest in training and development. That's what we do. So that we'll get into a new or a higher level of performance. What does it mean? It means our product is leading to improved performance. It is they are buying from us. What are they buying? The service we are doing is training and development. The buying based on which, because of which, right, performance happens, right? So our value is how we are able to help improve performance and meet the objectives of the business. Our objective is not to deliver training, not to manage training, right? Our business, we are existing to improve performance and meet the business objective. We have to shift our emphasis. Most often, I have noticed over the years, they may not have the organization may not have a training function. The HR is what drives the training function. HR is more or less focused on only the HR priorities, obviously, which are also challenging. But what happens is a tick box activity wherein a training program happens. And that becomes our KPI, unfortunately. Our KPI has the performance improved as the business objectives met. That should be our KPI, right? If we don't do this, if training doesn't meet performance and objectives, what comes out results is all learning scrap. It's of no use if whatever efforts we are putting doesn't lead to any improvement. So in an organization, in a manufacturing organization, products are made. If they don't meet the specifications, what happens? They tend to become scrap. Same way, the training we are doing, delivering or organizing or managing does not result in any value in terms of improved performance. We are also generating learning scrap, right? It's very costly in terms of the materials, in the time, and even the opportunity costs. See, if the percentage of employees who improve reality really is less than 20%. Most of the time, we as learning professionals, estimate. It means 80% of our efforts are producing nothing but learning scrap. I may be very brutal here, ladies and gentlemen. Let us realize this fact. No wonder, so many managers feel, actually, L&D का क्या फायदा है? कुछ होता ही नहीं है. I think some of you may agree also. Some of the lab managers, you may say that. What do they do? It's because we do not try to measure. Intention is not to show that results, right? So let us be aware of this learning scrap always. So what are the main causes of learning scrap? It could be, one, training is not the right solution. Let us not attempt something, as I said earlier, which is not possible through training. Let the HR part take over, not the line people take over what is required at the workplace. Let us not enter into an area where we cannot directly or indirectly measure the impact of training or the OD intervention. Second is when the wrong people are trained, right? We train and also at the wrong time. Even today, despite so many changes that have happened in the training environment, people are nominated for training as a recognition of their work. No, there has to be a need for the training. What way we as HR turning to change that attitude or mentality of our line? We have to take care of that, right? See, core training is itself something very important. Every faculty in our programs that we do, are they? Because I don't expect like you people are doing this training program, diploma course. Are they through a facilitation course, skills course? You may, even at the end of this program, develop yourself as one who can do the training of training officers, facilitation skills. they have to have the minimum requirement of doing a training program on facilitation skills to be qualified to train. Just because I am a subject matter expert doesn't mean I can train. So we need to ensure that as well, right? Very important, the last one, inadequate reinforcement at the workplace. If there is no reinforcement at the workplace, then there is no point in doing the training. Here again, I'm going back to our friendship, our relationship with our line managers, right? We have a job to check with the line managers how useful this training has been. Do you see any perceptible improvements or changes in the behavior of people? Are you able to see changes in performance, in the results? Are we going back to them? Invariably, 80% of the time, we don't do it. So we need to, it's work, hard work, but it's best. Even let me tell you, I've been into HR. I also been in training in my 30 and odd years, or even as the shop floor, even as a industrial engineer. Nothing satisfies me most in what I am just currently telling you. It's hard work, but it has given me fulfillment and satisfaction in able to see results, right? Now, training, as I mentioned, is not a cure-all. The reason I'm bringing out this particular slide is, there are so many areas where there is something besides lack of knowledge or skill, right? Which, for example, there's no feedback. The process is not right, poor process. You cannot address it to a training solution. Things like unclear expectations, lack of skills, non-incentives, no incentives, these are something which we can also not possible. What is important required is managers actually think training as a hammer, So if you see there's a problem, hit the nail with the hammer. It's not so. So we have to see, they often ask when asked for training when the real problem is elsewhere. So we'll have to address training only where we can, right? This is something which we need to ensure. Okay. So we have to make this made clear to our managers. So you see there are 3 levels of performance, right? It's based on Rumbler and Brush's study in 2012. One is workplace, that is organization, policy structure. We have no role to play. We may advise, suggest. The work per se, the processes and resources, we may also here be consulted, we can give something. But our major job as trainers is on the worker, job, skills, knowledge, and job structure. This is where we have to work. So training and development works only on that area, where only it can impact the skills and knowledge. See, if the real cause of any suboptimal performance is at the work level, right? For example, a poorly designed process, or at the organization level, bad policies, then training the worker will not help, right? So this is something which we need to be worried. So we are only to focus on the lower area, which is the worker of the job as a trainer, right? Whereas as an OD professional, we may have some areas to discuss about, consult about, right? So what we need to see now is how we can keep in mind that always the performance influence at these 3 levels, and the workplace or the organization, policies and structure, the worker processes and all that. So, and how can training development have an impact on this? So this is something what we are having now, right? Now what have we to do? First and foremost, we'll have to see the needs. Then where are the gaps? What is required and what is unnecessary? Then assess the gaps and prioritize, identify the resources and their availability, and plan a strategy and deliver the training. This is the systematic approach to training that we are supposed to do. But how does training create value, right? If you call it, we have given a successful training, it has to lead to business results, not the completion of what we call a happy sheet. At the end of the training, we have this reaction feedback. People say, oh, they're very happy, the trainer is good, the food was good, the venue was good. that is not the success of training. As you know, if you're discussing about the Kirkpatrick's model, we'll going to share next session as well. It is at all the 4 levels, right? How you are able to address in terms of increased income. How did it bring about decreased cost? Training can create value only in these 3. Sometimes this connection is direct and obvious, like for example, sales training. If after a training, sales have increased, or after maybe a Six Sigma training, quality has increased, costs have reduced, and defects have reduced. That is something which you can even measure. But sometimes the connections are less direct. For example, behavioral training, leadership training, effective leadership skills. In fact, they do improve productivity. They may increase retention. But can you say it's because of training this has happened? It is not very obvious, right? It is not quick. The point is that we need to be able to explain how every training that we offer is contributing in some way to achieving the business objective. It is very important to get this, convey to the management through our own measures and secure that support we require, right? And also, since we are following up with the participants on the training, they also will participate enthusiastically, right? Here are people, here are these guys who are serious that whatever we attended training they are asking us how we are applying it. The managers, they are saying, oh, here are guys who are really serious about this. We must drive home the importance at the end of the training program. The actual training doesn't end, but it starts. Are we making that felt by the people? So this is something which we need to see. So what all I'm just mentioning here is trying to bring about that there is a planning wheel. Even if we know the business goals is general, we need to understand that these goals of the training program will be sure to add some value, right? So this tool, whatever we are trying to say, this is 6 Ds, has proven very useful in both large and small companies. That's what they have brought out a booklet as well, a toolkit as well. It's a way, of course, I also could relate this in the training program that I could do subsequent to attending this training program as a follow-up of the training I did. So this is called the 6 Ds outcomes of planning. It looks as it is just circle divided into 4 quadrants. And when you get a request for training, we must ask like, training takes time and costs money. We in the training department are committed to give you the greatest possible return on your investment. I in the training department can help you much better if I have a deeper understanding of what you want to accomplish. Will you be willing to spend a few minutes with me to help me understand the business drivers and outcomes you want? Just ask yourself, are we doing this? Yes, you may say this is required, but are we discussing more? Right? Just say, oh, we need some soft skill training. We need this. Are we discussing more? What do you, by after this training, what do you see in terms of change behavior? Are we doing it? It's just a things that we need to think about, right? What are we trying to achieve, right? It may appear straightforward, but this is very important, right? Second question is, when the training is successful, what will we do that is different, right? What are the behaviors? What are the participants are going to do? As I mentioned here, what will they do better? The third question will be, how would you like to confirm if the changes have been made, the measures, right? So we have to get our leaders and managers engaged in this thinking, right? Then only our evaluation will be easier. And the last question will be results. What are the results? What are the specific criteria for the success? That means how much of a change has occurred, right? Think of this as the SMART goal. We have all discussed, SMART, simple, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time goal of the training. This is something which we need to focus on. So we need to create co-ownership. So as I mentioned, I may be reinforcing that the co-owner here is our line managers. They have to own, right? So they are the people who are giving that climate for transferring all that outcome wheel into action, right? The atmosphere. So in fact, even without this online communication back in the earlier organized work, we used to send a pre-briefing document. Here is the guy we learned from the British Steel only. This is the person who's attending your program. Please discuss, spend time with him or her, saying the importance of the training program, what they expect of the training program, right? This is, and after the training program, it's all couriered documents sent to the line manager or to the HOD. He has attended the training, she attended the training program. Please debrief what they expect of him or her after the training program. This is how we need to make co-owners, the line co-owners of this program, right? So there are two things which are very important, in any training. Can I or will I? Two questions we have to address. Can be addressed through our training programs. We give up skills, abilities to learn and implement. But the second very important is the will I. I will be able to apply what I have learned only when I have the climate or environment to apply those skills. If I attend a training program, I'm giving a very technical thing here on bearing fitting, right? Some of you engineers know bearing has to be heated up a bit to be put onto that shaft, right? Otherwise, it will not fit in. But you go back to the shop floor, and then the manager says, "Arey yaar, haath thoda se maar," because that's what he has been doing, right? So what is the point in doing the training program on heating it and putting it? Because when you are using a hammer, which is faster, of course, but it's going to damage the bearing. It's also going to damage the shaft. So what I'm trying to say is we must ensure that whatever we have learned, the land manager also is supporting in any way. I may be using a very crude example here, but this is what happens, right? So we'll have to see and the right kind of reinforcement is available, what we have learned. So we need to work together to show that work environment, the transfer climate reinforces that, right? So what is you need to see is the first D, the D1, defining business outcomes is very critical, right? So for what we have to follow up, as I said, the pre-briefing document. So this is what it says. It's just a text of thank you for this. We are a training program. This is the training. Just as a debriefing document, right? To be sent. You can now send it as an email. So and so attend the training program. This is what is expected. This is really builds the efficacy of the training session, right? So this is a requirement to the next, that first level, which is the defining business outcome. See, if you don't know, if at Alice Wonderland, what it says, Charles Dickens, no, it is Lewis Carroll, right? He says, if you don't know where you are going, how can you possibly plan the journey, right? So why we are do the first and foremost important thing, and we as training of professionals, we have to think business outcome, right? Very, very important. So the 4 phases of learning is first one, the D1. It is the crucial. We have spent a lot of time here just to make us important that we are doing training for this and not for a tick box activity, which is organizing or delivering. Can you please mute Shiv? Shiv, can you please mute? Shivani or Shiv, I don't know who it is. Can you please mute? Yeah. So it does not matter how creative the design is, how excellent the facilitators are, the training won't deliver value. The business wants. Because we don't know where we are going, we cannot possibly plan and the journey effective. So the 4 phases of learning is first is the current level of performance before we go back there. Then the preparation phase, of course, to reach the level, the top level of performance, preparation phase is where you prepare the formal instructions. This includes the experience as well as pre-work, formal or structured activities, right? We develop into the modules so that people learn is a very longer and critical, period for us in terms of developing that module and the transfer of them, right? There, it takes time for people. You cannot immediately. We may do a pre-test and a post-test, which will help us know the knowledge, gained. But the skills will only through no application over a period of time. It is not necessary what we learn are done then and there, but over a period of time. So after this is that fourth, which is the level of performance. Have we achieved the level of? There should be a sense of achievement. Okay, this is something which we'll discuss later. So the first part, the preparation part is the next D, right? The next D is that, right? So we prepare. So we have to see what do we know, what are the knowledge foundation we have to work on, right? What are the reasons that we might make learning assignment before actual begins? So we need to connect to the participants even before the training program, right? Giving them pre-reads, give them some exercises. In fact, back in Voltas, I used to attend a training program which used to be organized in Lonavala by a very renowned faculty. I don't know how many of you are aware of him. We used to call him Homie. So he used to ensure that all of us pre-read a reading material and complete the assignment before we enter the training session. Even if you are a senior level manager and you have traveled down from Delhi to Lonavala, if you have not attended you done the pre-read, not done the assignment, Homie would ask you to go back. I also had the luxury of doing it, well, not in these organizations I worked, but in earlier organizations, to turning out people who have not done the pre-work. We need to be a bit serious. We really mean business, right? So we'll have to see how we can make the pre-read material. It's not engaging. It's not about giving him a punishment. So engaging pre-reads will make it more interesting. Then we'll call them, call out for developing knowledge, for foundation knowledge, right? So we have to see how we can together develop, along with the line managers, develop some content. They have to make them feel that they are also part of it. You may engage a trainer, fine, but it's all the more important that you engage the trainer who has his own content. Make them feel that they make the line managers feel they're also party in developing the content. More or less, they may agree to what the trainer is going to deliver. But if you make that felt that they're also party, then the reinforcement back at the workforce will be better. Sometimes even the participants also, you can have them as part of the people who develop the content. We have to have that content which is stimulating some interest. Intentionally, we are creating learning, right? That's something which we'll see. We have to ensure that the learning goal is always kept in mind. Whatever inputs have to be there, we'll have to see how we can get the feedback across almost 360 degrees, right? That will be used, and then that will be used in the pre-read or a classroom and whatever it is, and the assignments are made to be completed, right? This is so very, very important. So there has to be some creative element in the pre-work that will make them connected to the training even before the actual training takes place, right? So those days when, the old line was the event I mentioned earlier, a learning event is not the finish for learning, right? It's actually the improved performance, which is the finish learn for training. And between this is the learning transfer. I am a person who would strongly urge the learning or the certificate that is normally given out to people at the end of the training is not a satisfactory completion of training. We need to move this finishing line to actually the after completion, after achievement of it. So Roy in 60s did not give us the certificate when we completed the 2-day training. After we submitted the project report, then only we got the certificate, right? After completing implementing this. So we need to change the rules if we can. And then There has to be some sort of competition. There are some people who have already done it, announce it across the organization. He has done it, he has received the certificate. Let there be a sense of healthy competition. You applied it on the job in a way that improved your performance, and your managers are certifying it. Here is your certificate. That's how it should be, right? You're open to ask me any questions. I'm available. I'm seeing that I've been talking for the last 15, 20 minutes, or more than that, rather. A sense of accomplishment is where we have evidence when they study daily work, data productivity is improved, more creativity has happened, commitment has increased, and so on and so forth, right? So this is something which everybody wants. It's not that people do not want achievement. They also want to do it, right? So we also want to be sure as trainers that the people experience a sense of progress, right? So that they are staying motivated and they also are able to create results. So our instructional methods, whatever, must be in a way that we engage the learner. So all the methods, the instructional method is something which will influence how the materials is used. Whatever material using, they have to be in such a way that it's easy for them to apply on the job, right? So if you ask, contents can be, the learning content can be of two ways. One is a content you can make, which is highly content. Then you see the way the people in the classroom are looking, right? Extremely bored, right? So are we delivering content where learners are passive, right? So if you have a content heavy, I hope my content is not that heavy, but we can't help it being in this online course and trying to cover a syllabus. But if you were with me in a classroom, things would be slightly different. But what we have to focus is actually to have something which is giving an opportunity for people to practice, applying, having discussions, syndicate groups, 1-1, 1-to-1, 2-to-3. This is how we need to think. We need to ensure the trainers and the facilitators, even on functional training, technical training programs, it is possible to have this practice, right? By using QR codes, by using kits, so many ways we can facilitate even highly technical programs to have this element of practice, right? So there's a very famous saying which says, content covered is not content learned. In fact, in a path-breaking book, Evidence-Based Training, Youth Clock says this, right? In other words, because we went over something in class, it doesn't mean that people have actually learned, right? So we have not learned cycling or swimming just one day, right? Sat on a cycle or jumped into a pool. We fell down, we bruised our ankles or the knees, right? We had some support. Same ways to do with learning and training as well, right? Much of what we try to teach is riding like a bicycle, We can't learn everything that even now you're doing by watching the PowerPoint slides, right? It is like similar, right? We have to get onto the bike and try. So I am urging through this also, don't limit your learning only for the case of, I'm sure you would not completing the syllabus, passing the examination, getting this coveted certificate. But I urge you to see what best you can do in your own organization, whether you're in HR, whether you're training, whether you're a line manager as well, right? See what you can do to learn to implement some of these that you are doing it. So most of the corporate training, classes, try to cover too much material. But I am also victim, or I won't say victim. I admit, I confess that I also like that. I used to believe some years earlier, more content means more knowledge, which is not so. So telling isn't training. So we should ensure that learners need to be actively engaged. It takes time. It's better to cover less than to be sure, that people learn it than to try to put too much material in our training programs. People most often forget it. It is said, in fact, Confucius said it some 1,000 years back. Confucius was a Chinese philosopher. He said, I heard, I forgot. I saw, I remembered. I did, I understood. And to top it all, I'm adding here one more. I taught the way we are learning here now. I mastered. So this is something which we need to remember about it. So back to learning, there's always this, this situation, right? Too much content, right? I think that, it's how nice to know. The problem is that too much content creates confusion, creates cognitive overload, right? And it will not help in deep learning. So if you look at the amount of content and the amount learned, anything among that is overload, right? More content is not a good content. It is more important that is more learning should happen. So this is something which we need to be focused about. So the bottom line, what I just covered is the second D of the breakthrough learning, which is D2, designing the complete learning experience. It is not just the content, but in terms of the experience of the learner. So if you want people to apply whatever they learn, we have to design the complete learning experience, which starts before, during, and after instruction. Then only you will be able to test their ability to apply and not just recall, right? So recalling questions, are easy to write. You have objective type. Invariably, we tend to know which is the right answer. But only when you do it, then only we're able to tell people that we actually done the job. That's why did I mention in that on-the-job training, questions they may answer because they know, but somebody, the lineman is observing the person actually doing against the competency checklist. Then only know the training has been useful. So we all know that the third part, getting the third D3, third part, which is the delivery part. We have discussed probably as part of one of the papers in our syllabus, adult learning, right? So the principle of adult learning stems from what Mark Knowles said, right? On the adult learner. Adults want to, what do you want? Do what they need to learn much before undertaking to learn. So the key principle is they want to know why they should learn. That's very important. So our tasks as trainers or even OD, experts, professionals, we have to make sure that people in our classes understand the relevance of the training, right? We have to make really a compelling case, right? This is very important, and so that they can apply the job. So there is a value chain, right? So where are we in this value chain, right? So we have to have the desired business outcomes, right? So we have discussed about the planning wheel as well, right? Goals, behaviors, measures, results. Now, what are they for? So that we develop the business outcomes. We will talk out the required skills and behaviors, and we plan those learning experience. So all these are connected to this. This is a value chain, right? Until we complete the last link, right? We will not be able to apply our instructional design correctly so that people have those necessary learning experiences and develop those skills which are required. Now, this is how it comes. This is what one leads to the other, the behaviors lead to whatever required, and of course, this. Now, so the bottom line for the third D, that is D3, is if learners don't believe the training was useful or relevant, they won't even try to transfer it. Are we reinforcing right from the word they have been appointed, nominated for the training session, that they will have to see whatever they are learning has need for applying on the job? So the third D is deliver for application. So we have to ensure that there are this additional strategies that are required to facilitate the application of the job. But more often, we hope that whatever learning or training that we design or create or provide will ensure that it is applied. mind you, hope is not a strategy, right? Hope is not a strategy. So we think we give a training, learning is transferred, right? And then something happens, results take place, right? So what is hope? Hope is something you have no control. I hope it doesn't rain today, right? Do you have any control on it? Not at all. The same thing happens to most of us. So, but any strategy is made of actions and tactics that converts the visions to results to make things happen, right? This is what we have to see. So throughout this, what Roy has emphasized, and we as trainers, we need to see that it's so very important. Learning transfer is the actual link between learning and results, right? Without this learning transfers, the learning results will not happen. This results is what will mean improved performance in the job, right? So let us understand we should stop hoping, right? Hope is not the problem. The problem is learning transfer. And once learning happens, that's the problem, then only results will happen. So it's typical to a PDCA cycle, right? We all discussed on the PDCA plan to check and that started by even this called the famous Deming cycle, named by Mr. Edwards Deming, the one who was connected to the statistical quality control and the total quality management, father of quality revolution along with Joseph Juran. In fact, I want to mention here, Joseph Juran was the one who coined the term, performance is equal to potential minus interference. I think I mentioned to you in the last class, right? So how we improve performance is only to develop potential, increase potential, and then minimizing the interferences through lack of abilities, attitudes, knowledge, and skills, or even the transfer climate is also interference, right, in one way or other. Okay, so PDCA, plan a change, then do things the new way, and this is very important. Check the result and analyze it to see whether the change made things better or worse, or had no effect. Just learn to plan the next change, and then build the mode. This is the typical PDCA cycle. So Deming, in short, this is the only way you can apply, to see that we are looking for another opportunity to improve things. So our learning, the training journey is actually continuous continuous improvement cycle. So we'll talk about it, even the last one, the document, the D6 is actually documenting results. But today, now we are in that fourth D4, right? Fourth, which is D4. We need to make some changes in the process, check that they have added value and all that. So a transfer climate model is very important, right? So we have to have this, there are three factors which are very, very important for learning transfer, right? One is the ability, which means, as I said earlier, an answer to is yes. What is it? Can I? So we are providing that through the training sessions and all that, right? As part of the job which is required, the skills required. It includes whether even managers will allow them to think in a way which is again motivation, right? As we said earlier, depends on the belief that using that will make them perform better, right? And the third is environment. So there are impediments in the environment that either facilitate or impede the application learning. So this is very important. So we as OD, I may be using training and OD interchangeably because, as I said, again reinforce, without training, OD may not be successful. We have to give the necessary amount of knowledge, appreciation, which is so that people take home something to apply back on their workplace. So the arrows that you see here between motivation, environment, ability, and all that, are that all these factors interact. Environmental factors influence motivation, right? And vice versa. Ability also influence motivation and environment and vice versa. So all these are factors that we need to take into cognizance for a transfer climate, right? So what are we doing all this for is for application for training, right? So we have to constantly remind people about the application. In fact, the entire advertisements that we are bombarded with through or TVs or maybe messages through WhatsApps or whatnot is only to reinforce and remind us periodically about our training, right? Even a McDonald or any company or Starbucks or anything has not got customers because of just setting a shop, right? It's only because of the advertisements. So we also have to advertise. An area which honestly, let me tell you, was an area which learned very recently, right? Relatively in my training, skills. We have to beat our drums, right? This is very important. Many may not see it, but it's very important. We have to talk to people, take appointment, meet, talk. So it is here where we need to see, remind people how often actually we are getting us to remind people about this. Normally it's not happening. So did you notice this disconnect? I'm open to this question, you to answer this question. I'm only trying to check with you whether you're able to relate what I'm trying to say here. Yeah. So we need to take a page from this advertisement, what you call reinforcement I'm making here, right? So we have to see that training is on the radar of all of people, right? Or OD or whatever interventions we are trying to be, always on the radar, right? So the bottom line here is the success of any training, depends on what the immediate supervisors can reinforce or determine any training program, right? So are they, in a position to explain the benefits? Are they in a position to provide support? So we need to get, better than what we are today, right? So how they're positively engaged in this area of this reinforcement, or in the area of performance support. To this, the fifth D5, we already talked about this, is performance support. So we can provide job aids, we can set reminders, checklists, right? That help people need to be more successful. So the performance support could be of various ways, right? This could be through paper aids, through checklists, the apps also these days, right? After the training program, we can set. In fact, currently we are doing, as part of the Art of Living program, the Art of Leadership course. I'm also one of the faculties there. So after the training session, we also, for 21 days, we are sending some reminders, some checklists for us people to connect, right? For them to study and relate to what they are doing, applying on these areas as well. So this is something which we need to see that we incorporate in whatever way. So let us try to see that it's just not a college or a certificate, certificate providing center or training centers or our role, but we are only interested as much as they are, as their managers are, in improving their performance. So all these tools are very much required for performance support. We are also, this is where we handhold them. So we have to handhold them to even to their workplaces. So several ways are there. You can think creatively with help from the line managers, with help of the participants, how we can be more helpful to create better performance supports. Like coaching, like tricks of the trade, whatever, some better ways of doing things, how we can provide moral support, right? Little tips, as I said, some manuals you can give, encouragement you can give, right? Today, with the help of today, we have all this media, email, WhatsApp groups, and all that to try to connect to people which weren't there 30 years back, right? So the technology can come in a very big way as performance support, right? So as you are thinking about this performance support, let us not forget one thing. We need to ask ourselves, is this only for human beings will able to provide the support? How can I assure that they are available, able to give the right kind of support, right? How important it is, right? This is something which we need to see. That is possible only we document the results. How important is the results? Measure, evaluate, and report the results to provide continuously improve training values, right? So sum and substance of it is we have seen 6 Ds, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, each starting with the D, which is defining the business outcomes, designing the complete learning experience, delivering for application, driving learning transfer, deploy performance support, and document results. So though they may appearing to you as per se only for training, we can use the same Ds to some effect even in OD, right? So they can also match there too, because as I said, some element of training or a significant element of training is also part of OD integration, right? So this is what is the latent speed for implementation. I have taken more time, but I only want to drive home the importance of the training strategy, right? For training strategy to be implemented, we need to go through these steps. Okay. Right. Now, what is important now is to develop a training calendar. How do we? Some of you already on the job, you're doing this, or most of you, it may not be anything new, but we'll have to really connect to the strategy and the calendar, right? Most often, even consultants, though we start off in a big way, very, I would say, passionately, but because of whatever reasons, missing lack of things that I just mentioned, we are not actually successful. We may aim 100%, we would be probably 40% successful. Even that is better. Even 40 to 50% of success in achieving whatever we intended is a good thing to start, right? But very, very important is we need to first and foremost, right, have a well-defined strategy, because combined with a comprehensive training calendar, right, which will empower employees with whatever skills and knowledge is needed, right? Then we have to develop our training calendar, right? Schedule the session strategically, right? We'll have to understand what are the employee workloads, because if you have people working across various time zones, then we'll have to consider that as well. These days, online courses are coming a very useful way of connecting to people across various time zones to go into e-learning courses. And we need to factor some pre-work requirements as well, duration, post-training assessments, and if required, use for project management tools. So online calendars, like all those that we have in Gmail and all that, for really scheduling communication. These days, technology can come in very, very useful for our courses and all that, to follow up and things like that. So I want to share with you an organizational context here, more as to connect the strategy with the calendar, which I was party to briefly as a consultant before I moved on to become a director HR at the other organization. One is the developing is firstly is the context I want to mention. I want to, for a confidential reason, I'm not going to name the organization, but I'm just abbreviating it as a BIL. There's a pharmaceutical company with an established presence around 45 countries. It's headquartered in Navi Bombay, and it's a fast growing. About 2022, it was about 150 crores, and integrated in marketing and manufacturing a range of pharmaceutical preparations. And they wanted to achieve 500 crores by 2025. It's a relatively a small organization, not like the Pfizer's and the Glaxo's and all that. This is a relatively small, but has a presence model. So they roped in me for doing this intervention, and the advantage is that they have a presence, as I said, in the therapeutic areas of the cancer research, anti-diabetic, cardiology, and all that, and we're into some way doing some as a presence competing with some of the even the big players as well, some of the products. So the need and approach that we developed was, first and foremost, employees in this organization had never had any exposure to training. It was all on the job, whatever, learning and doing. No formal approach to training other than the management's, interventions and things like that, some little recognitions and all that was happening. No training per se. It had a strength of around 300 employees, 200 were at the factories and about 100 in the office and in various sales centers across the country. There was no formal performance management system at all. Highly subjective in the eyes of the line, in the line, and of course into the participants. The directors were deciding for all the employees, and of course this line of senior HODs. Okay, and employees were not fully aware what are the expectations, what is the organization. They were in silos doing what they were to do, and not much about the necessity for internal customer satisfaction to satisfy the external customer. Reason I'm saying this is all these inputs were very important for me to develop a training calendar. Whatever customer service was more or less reactive. So only the sales guy was paid or bore the brunt of the satisfaction, dissatisfying the customer. And he would do, then there would be a lot of noises, the conflicts between the production and the sales and whatnot, supply chain and all that. And so this was very limited to a few people. The supply chain had absolutely no understanding about the problems, right? Or even the production. So there was a absence of team working, communications was absent, the really areas of weaknesses there, right? Then the issues of diversity was also there, right? There were some biases, and this also need to be included, right? There were stereotypings there, right? So this was also to be addressed to in a big way, and so managers were, actually micromanaging. And we used to do a little feedback, and we found out many were actually breaking through the necks of the people there for achieving sales targets, right? So plans, that were made failed actually, because people were only bothered about, fighting fires there, right? All the time is firefighting. There were too many multitaskings to do. There were so many targets to fulfill, and they were not able to manage time. So these were these challenges that the organization faced, and this was brought in by the management and also through our feedback within. And this was the training calendar. And the demand of training was very important. It should be for the first 2 weeks. Still, there was this mindset that last few weeks we are worried about production and then sales. We have to meet those sales targets. It's always there in the back of their mind, which the leaders were not able to drop down, right? Then of course we said, okay, we'll take care of it in the first 2 weeks. Whatever training interventions we'll do, we'll do it this way. So out came the training calendar. I don't know how many of you are able to see this. So as I said earlier, based on the inputs, we first had first and foremost the company orientation session over 2 days. We developed some SOPs. We just trained them on this across the organization, across the plant, across the shop floor, bringing them to the classrooms in batches. Of course, all that I didn't do. We trained a few people on the line and got them to do this. Then performance management. See, that was April, right? So it was due for the increments and all that. So immediately we got people to be trained just over 2 hours. How should a performance conversation happen, right? So this was given to some of the managers, and then we also tried to mention them, okay, identify training program needs for the next. This was part of the management's and the plant manager, but it's quite possible the participants, or the workers, they also needed specific trainings, right? So give them an opportunity for taking this performance conversation also as an opportunity to learn, identify some training needs. Ideally, if you ask me, training, learning needs and performance conversations should be delayed, because people should not, get confused. But because this is the first time we were bringing in, we also asked them to be comfortable, tell them that we're not trying to um, punish you or penalize you for not performing and all that. We also want to see how you can develop. We start with actually. So we brought in this, and so that we will identify correctly, at least objectively, if I am a worker, my manager, my supervisor only will do my performance conversation, or even set a rating for me for whatever I'm doing, not the leaders up there or the HOD. He or she may not know what I am. So that sort of a objectivity we brought in. Then customer service we did. So it was not limited to the sales guys. Of course, they were given a more on a upgraded version of customer service through some online courses and all that. But we also try to give some instructor-led training to people in the other areas as well. Then blended courses for teamwork and collaboration and communication we did, exercises, classroom exercises and online courses, team building workshop. Time management also we try to prioritize. So how can you focus on time? It was only short sessions of 1.5 hours to showing some YouTube modules, and then some physical, online courses, asking questions and answers. And then obviously when we're talking about time management, we'll also be conscious about the time. People should not lose time coming to the classroom. We did it entirely in online course. Then very important to understand product knowledge, right? So the cost of quality, right, were also mentioned to sales and marketing, and as much as to the production guys, right? Presentations were made, interaction sessions were done, just off day sessions. Then the leaders, by then June, we had this need for leaders now be taken up. So I actually conducted this session as well on leadership through actions to the entire management team over 2 days, right? Because leadership is also a skill. People think I learned I can role model somebody. No, it's not possible. Leadership is a skill which has to be developed. We have to have the structured interventions for people to know what they are weak at, what are the areas they need to improvement, and things like that. So that was also done. Then we also, as I said, made ensures not only, I think I used to put, I added here in diversity inclusion in the workplace also, POSH sessions, harassment and other things as well, which I think came in well, which really made some difference across the organization. And this is how we're training. Let me tell you, this is only for people who are fresh to developing a training, because some of you already are probably doing it and know it as well. It's only to see how we can evolve a training calendar based on a strategy and discussions with the alignment is concerned. Any questions? If there are no questions, probably.
Mr. Ravi?
Yes.
So
yes,
why only these topics were selected?
Yeah.
You have written based on strategy, that is clear, but why only selection of only teamwork and say customer service? Like these are only few topics.
See, I showed you. I think you have noticed this. I hope you were there when
Yeah.
These are the reasons. These are the reasons. So these were coming out as those challenges, issues, right? So you cannot achieve a very lofty turnover of 500 crores in 3 years, right? We're doing the same thing again and again. As I said earlier, what brought you here will not take you there. What are required are all interventions now. See, hitherto, people were working, honestly, I may be using very laymanish language, for their salaries. They are getting paid, and well, they have nothing else to do. They can't get a job. There was attrition also. Pharmaceutical is also an area where there is a lot of attrition. So if attrition happens, developing another, the incumbent, the other person new one is going to be extremely costly as well. So these interventions to some extent helped people to be retained, right? So they were realizing the organization, the leaders are really meaning they care for us. right? It is not that we are working and we are being paid for the work we are doing. Because of these interventions over the period of 3 months, 4 months, they realized much better. Though, let me comment that the leaders are very nice people. They have their, once in a year annual get-togethers or dinner and all that. They do some little recognitions of good work, targets done, and all that. All that is done. But some of the people who are cynics, I don't think they were cynics, but they were really meant that it was probably a bit subjective. That was the feedback we got in private, and it was not appearing very democratic also to some extent. So this really helped in breaking that sort of a perception on the management as well. So all those interventions that I showed you the next were actually dotated to those issues and challenges we face. Got it, Preeti? Yes? Shall I move on?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So the next part is the why this HR and ODs, despite all efforts, all we play. I mentioned earlier, well, they may fail. And by now, having seen what makes HD, training or HR successful, it will be very easy. Just a second. I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm giving a small break now to all of you, and write down now, based on almost 2 hours of bombarding that I have made to you through various means, what are the ways and means why in any HR or OD strategy fails. I'm giving you the next 5 to 10 minutes, right, to list down. Since you are aware now what makes HRD, OD or training succeed, now can you in the next 10 minutes list down why these fail? You can use the chat box if you want to. Please start writing on the chat box.
So what is the question, sir? Can you please repeat?
The question is, I'm asking you to write answers to why HR and OD strategy fails. What do you think would be the reason? You can start using the chat box if you want. Come on, keep them pouring. Because we don't have Nikhil writes, we don't have friends committed towards the change operation manager. Good, good. Non-alignment between the leadership expectation and HR. Good. What else? It aligns the group to cooperate. Okay, you say helps people to develop an individual. Fine. I'm asking the question, why HR or OD strategy fail? Yes, please keep pouring. I didn't ask the reason why. Weak execution. Okay, why weak execution? Yeah, why weak execution? Refocus. Well, we don't focus on the individual. Okay. Good, Ajay. Lack of a concrete plan to and no communication with senior leaders employees. Okay. The operational work is always prioritized and HROD sideline. Okay. There are 25 people today and only 4 who have responded. What else? In fact, you can relate to identification for the need for change. Okay, good. And communicating them. Okay, what else? Lack of business alignment to the business. Failing to understand business. It's a time-consuming process. Okay, good. Many things you need to change. They can't think big. Identify weak areas. Leadership uninterested in OD. Okay. Right. Okay. I would suggest to you a good point that you made, Preeti. I would suggest to you in the group itself, or the WhatsApp group, I want you to write down how you can make the line or the leadership interested in OD or training. Your own ways, right? Write down that. That's a homework for you. Write down.
So sorry, sir. Yeah, I didn't get you.
What I'm saying is, you can write down what are the ways and means in which you can get the leadership interest. There is sufficient information I have shared to you throughout the session today, right? You can build on it and see how can you make leadership interesting, right? Think on ways, create ways of getting leadership interesting, right? Areas of concern by business, right? Have you ever, I'm asking a question, have you ever discussed with people and said, what is your pain point, right? Have you made some focus group interventions, right? If you are HR, you have in focus group interventions, talk to people around, other than compensation and other HR related grievances, we are here to talk about areas for improving performance and development and things like that. Then what is your ways and means? So that's a good way to start with. So we used to do a lot of focus group interventions, only 15 minutes of time. It would be a good break from the daily routine. If you're not doing it, please do it, right? Even if you're part of HR or not, try to focus on this. And then you can give the summary to their leaders and then get their buy-in and see if there are any which have a training solution or a body intervention possible. Okay. 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 Anything else? Okay. If not, let's move on. Thank you so much for your inputs. So why do HR and OT strategies fail, right? We'll start with the HR strategy first. As somebody mentioned, we are not collaborating with senior leadership and the processes first and foremost, right? Are we asking this question? It's almost like a checklist now. Are we really collaborating with them? Yes, as somebody mentioned earlier, their priorities is work, their priority is their target. But have you ever asked at least once, can I have some 30 minutes of your time during the week? Or is it possible for me to commute along with you to a particular place where you can drop me off? I obviously, when if he's a person doesn't have time, you can walk the talk, or any time over lunch somewhere. So this is something which we need to see if we have taken time. Believe me, understand, no, very few people of leadership will call you, very few, for the designing or training or OD intervention. unless they have tasted success in a previous organization, right? Or they've tasted in that organization or learned it somewhere. It's our job to be serious about and just asking an appointment with either one or two of the leaders concerned. What are your pain points? You know, by interacting with people across what are the problems, list down. And I mentioned in the one of the slides about during the 6 Ds, not all have training solutions. Don't over promise. It's better to under promise and over deliver, right? So try to see whether that also can be addressed, but look for interventions which will enable you to change people's thinking from I cannot to I can. I will not be able to I will. That's the one we need to focus on. So sometimes our HR strategy itself is complicated, right? We are, as somebody mentioned, we're not aligned to it. You cannot have some training program for the sake of training programs, right? As a break from participants, and our business strategy is something else. There has to be perfect alignment to the business strategy, right? And we're not specific, for what actually is the need, right? If we, like doctors, we have to diagnose the problem. If I'm having a headache and I come to you, you cannot say, oh, this is a headache. You take some analgesic or something like that and then cure it. It's quite possible I have a problem. My problem is because of indigestion, I'm having a headache. I must ask questions. You must ask me questions. Since when you are having it? What did you have yesterday? What food did you have? Did you see a movie that put you on stress? Did you have a problem with someone at home? I mean, we have to ask several questions, right? Then through algorithmic way, we'll have to come to the root cause, possible root cause even then, right? So we have to get specific to what is the required need there, right? And what are the proper support process? Okay, if you're going to do it, do we have the buy-in for this, right? Then only we can move on. Most of the time, we think our strategy, if you get, oh, somebody Google is having this program or this, Accenture is having a session. I have done it there, so I can do it here. It can't work. So the culture of the organization may be different, right? So we'll have to really see what is best possible. Replicating will not help. We need to also see what are the solutions which are required. We have to see what is needed that is required. Sorry, you can directly not have solutions, right? So we'll have to see by steps and step that what is really needed, then giving to solutions, right? Then most often what happens is we are actually see what is tactical. Let us address it to this means, but they will not give long-term solutions, right? It is like corrective solution. What we are interested in, preventive solutions. Let not this repeat again. Let there be a long-lasting solution, right? So this is something which has to be addressed strategically. And initiatives were just, almost tooth polish approach that is called, just trying to address it without really addressing the factors. So there has to be, as I said, I've been telling since the beginning, there has to be an element of seriousness in us by a few interactions with people and make them believe that they are party to this intervention. Even we are doing all the donkey's work of developing, designing, all that, fine. But we must give all credit to the line. It's because of them that we are doing this program. And we can definitely beat our drums in facilitating it, but we must ensure that we will always try to give all credit and support to the line in developing. In fact, we'll have to identify someone in the line, as I mentioned in the design of the program, that they also be facilitators, co-facilitators in the module, in the content, and also delivery. So if you don't communicate the strategy, then not aligning with the culture also is very, very important. No, you will have to do that. So this is part of the HR part. So let us see why OD interventions fail. First and foremost is we do not, almost they are related to the HR strategies. They are not clear, they are not well defined, and why it is necessary. Invariably did not align to the vision, mission, and core values of the organization. Right? Going back to the Reliance example, we started with the vision. We started with the values of the organization, and we had the vision statement made. If we have to make people, right, believe in the interventions that we're following under wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, we have to get this driven through the organization, the importance of values and behaviors. We can't simply provide training programs, simply make some talent management interventions, simply have employee engagement assessment just for the sake of having them. We need to relate that all the values and behaviors we want to espouse and demonstrate will be possible, will be better implemented only we have those wave 3, 2, 3, 4 also happening again along with. The lack of understanding of the commitment to organization goals, right, is very important. It has to be across the organization, not just to the management or the key positions. Everyone across the ranks and levels, right? Communication to employees is very, very important. In fact, those are the days when you used to have standees across everywhere, all the waves across as you enter the canteens, cafeterias, the washrooms, everywhere near we used to have those communication standees. And these days there are also screens also available across. These keep on changing because standees are once done. Now with screens available, we can keep on changing the communication across. It is a very meager investments these days, right? We need to communicate. So absence of buy-in is also something which I've been discussing again and again. This also causes resistance of management, right? So I'll go back to the first intervention that I was involved in as a OD or a training manager. The first thing that, because I had an engineering background and I was an industrial engineering background too, I came to the training as the implant trainer, training in charge. And the first thing that I did, fortunately for me, I was in the right time in the right place. And that was the time when the British still brought in the on-the-job training system. We used to call it unit training system. And this is the system I mentioned there, was giving instructions on the operations and maintenance of equipment, right? And believe me, this was in the local language, Hindi, which I thankfully learned because of this. And line manager was just poo-pooing this idea. I think I mentioned this as well. When you have to take out time for these people to do the training, the instructors, the supervisors, then what will work happen? I said, don't worry about it. We used to tell them, just take out, as they do this, they will learn. And what is important is the manual in front, right? So as and when these operations were done, the manuals, even they used to get greased, they used to get soiled, they were there in front. The operator, the instructors, the senior operator or the trainer who used to be trained in the job instruction techniques, who actually used to instruct the worker, each going through each of those procedures and the key steps. Everywhere the safety point was mentioned. Everywhere the need to doing it in that particular time is mentioned, right? How need of writing, doing the correct method is mentioned. Otherwise, they were led to do what they thought best. So since it was a manual developed by a group of similar individuals, some of them, the people who developed manual were, some of them were line managers themselves. It built credibility to the organization, to the entire intervention. Not all line managers are part of this, developing those manuals. So those were the guys who are very focused on the production or whatever it is. They would say, no, my production. Then we had to have a one-day session for them on the importance of this to make them realize, yes, if we support the people a bit, then I think our performance as managers on the shop floor will improve. So buy-in is very, very important, right? Then change is sluggish. If it is sluggish, right, the intervention will just die. So as I said, let me even admit here, wherever some of the interventions fail, it was maybe 40 or 50% of the time absence of our interventions because we are probably attempting too many at a time, right? And also, from the shop floor, I mean, on the line management, not giving sufficient time for us as well. So this is something which is there. Well, again, it builds down from what we are discussing so far is lack of faith. अरे यार ट्रेनिंग से क्या होगा, right? कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. अगर ट्रेनिंग से हो जाएगा तो, in fact, these were the first words used when I started the OD intervention person. What I just shared with you earlier was the training person intervention. I'm talking the OD intervention, the performance and program. I belong to the department. I moved out since, and then here I am telling the leadership that I think we can do something on this, because at that time I had done this. Fortunately, both the management degree from IMA and also the training and development through ISTD, I had some belief in me that I think we can do something, right? And the first time when I said this, the manager or the leader that said, "Ravi, आप अगर है तो इधर आ जाओ ना, इधर आके करो ना जो भी करना है." That was the words he first used, and he simply poo-pooed this idea. How can it be possible? Like the faith is we have to build the faith, right? So, in summing up, what I wanted to share with you is going through what all we discussed. As OD and training managers, we are responsible for one. We have to help employees improve performance through training strategies. So we'll have to get out of that mindset. If we still have, our job is to manage training and deliver training. We have to, whether it was OD or training professionals, what are we to do is, our objective is to improve performance of the organization. That has to be our mission, not even a mission, a mission. Translate all those KRAs of the respective HODs, have an access to them, and then have discussions with them and see how we can have some interventions through developing competencies in knowledges, skill, attitudes, abilities through training and OD interventions, right? That should be our objective. Second, are we learning? We have to ask at the end of the day, what did we learn today in this area of training or OD? What did we do? As I said earlier, only we do, we will reinforce our learning. So what did we do? Look at for opportunities to continuously do something which you have learned, right? And whatever change is required, are we doing it? Are we adapting? Are we creating an environment? There is so much that the land management has to do, I agree. But are we also doing it? How much visible are we on the shop floor? How much visible are we in the workplace? Are we, the people do recognize us as someone who is trying to bring out a change? We can only do it by being more friendly with our people. I'm sure you're doing it wherever you are, but I think we have to be more visible. There's a term called management by walking around. I will put it as training by walking around. We'll move around, see what they're doing. If they attended a training program, we have a list of people who attended a training session. Talk to them one-on-one. How was it? What did you do? Just not limit the feedback to reaction level feedback. That's how we can make our presence felt. We can facilitate change to training and be conscious of the impact. Very much important, right? How do we go about it? What all new skills we can bring about? We can build up, if there's no online courses happening, see access, start with some free courses available to Coursera, talk to people, get them done. You can have some other courses to done. You can buy courses which are very available at very cheap, very relevant need-based courses are there. Try to bring about, talk to the management. We can do that as well, right? So we must be, as we mentioned this earlier, we must be aware of the failure for whatever that happens, why execution doesn't happen through our interventions. So that's, I think, are the ways. And first and foremost is the identifying the gaps, of course, so that so we can start with bottom up, right? Also, right? We can also see so far what are the gaps. If at all already available, develop a calendar. Then you can go bottom up as well. Either bottom up or top down. Any which way also is okay, depending upon what extent you as trainers or OD professionals are there in organizations. I come to the end of this session. I would have gone fast. Pardon me for that. But if you have any questions, I am game for it now. Any questions? Yes. Yes. There are 22 now. I think we started at 30, now 22. So either you are there, you are not there, you understood or not understood. Any questions? Any pain points you have? A question that you have to ask your line management
I have a
professionals?
question, sir.
Yes,
Sir, I
Ajay.
have a question.
Yeah.
Sir, you had mentioned that you must insist the top leadership to for the training, to undertake training and all.
Yes.
Did you mean that we at the junior level should be giving an indication to the top management that training courses are required, or we should insist them to carry out the training courses? I think it should be the otherwise. The training, top management should be aware that training courses or training modules are required.
Yeah. So did I mean? So I'm sorry. First of all, I noticed that my video was off for most part of the time. I'm not sure. I just opened when I stopped sharing. I realized. Okay. Sorry.
No, sir. Your video was on.
On. Okay. Okay. Say sorry. Okay.
It's not an issue. What I'm saying is that you had mentioned that as a trainer, we should insist the top management to go in for training modules in their
no, not at all. You can definitely give some short videos, clips on the importance of training. In fact, I would urge you to go to the 6Ds clip, right? The 6Ds, there's a useful, I think, 2.5 or 3.5 minute on 6Ds, right? You need not advocate them on 6Ds, but it gives an essence of how important is the business objectives to be understood, relevant, is more for the line manager or this leadership than to us as trainers. It is developed in keeping in mind the line managers than more the trainers. Of course, it is important to us as trainers as well, but there are useful video clips that will make the leadership believe that if training has to deliver results, if they have to get the best benefits out of training, we as leaders, we as line managers are equal responsibility for it. So you can send them the small clips over YouTube, over clips through videos and WhatsApps as well. That also will align them to them. Or take an appointment, take some 5 or 10 minutes of it, right? So you can go with some preparation and saying these are the training programs so far happening here, sir. And I do not know to what extent has been the results or outcome you are feeling getting benefit out of it. But however, discussing about what you think are the pain points, and then this is how we need to develop a dialogue and then get out something specific from them. Right?
Okay, sir. I got that. Right.
Right. Next, anybody else? None? Okay, then in that case, I think it's done today, and we will meet next week on the 19th for the next part of the syllabus, where we are discussing about scorecards, the balance scorecards, the HR training scorecards, how do we measure training and things like that. And until then, goodbye, take care, wish you all the best. Bye-bye.